How's everybody doing this morning? Are we all right? Well, it's wonderful to see you all. This morning, I wanted to start off by asking the question of what do you think the Lord's greatest gift is to us? Waiting for more hands to go up here. What are your thoughts? Love, that's a great answer. It's a really great answer. It's actually almost the exact same answer as I'm looking for. It's another L word. Food is another good gift. What was that? Life, right? And love is actually, we're told that the Lord tells us that love is our life. So you had the right answer. So the Lord gives us our life. This is such an important and huge gift. And what do you think we could do in return for that gift? I mean, you think about the fact that we're alive is pretty amazing, isn't it? I mean, if you think about not being alive, it doesn't really work that way because you can't think if you weren't alive. But what can we do in return for this gift? Follow his commands. You are spot on. Really, really good. In ancient times, back when the children of Israel were, even before the children of Israel existed, a lot of them thought that the best way to say thank you to the Lord was to give gifts back, and they did something called sacrifices. Remember what a sacrifice is? It's a sacrifice. Do you have a thought? Like putting a sheep in the fire, right? So they would take like an animal, like a sheep or a bull or a goat or maybe some different birds, and they would put them into the fire, and then it would burn up and the smoke would raise up to heaven, and they felt that smell would be pleasing to the Lord. The idea about these gifts was to take something precious to them, because sheep and goats and lambs and all those things, those were all food for them. So this was something really important that they were giving back to the Lord. That was kind of the idea of what sacrifices were. And the idea was that the more precious the thing is that you sacrificed, the more that you would show the Lord your love. Now sometimes, though, if we think about this, sacrifice is kind of an odd thing, isn't it? It's kind of a sad thing to be taking the animals like that. That might not be exactly what the Lord wanted them to do, but sometimes we get confused as well about what the Lord really wants from us. And this is a story we're going to read where somebody gets really confused. And you remember, if it's the more precious something is that they sacrificed, then the greater the sacrifice would be to the Lord, meaning it would be more pleasing. So if we're confused in that way, we might think a little bit like Abraham. So this is in Genesis chapter 22. It says, "It came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, 'Abraham.' And he said, 'Here I am.' And he said, 'Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, which I shall tell you.' So Abraham rose up early in the morning, and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and he split the wood for the burnt offering. He arose and went to the place which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, 'Stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back to you.' So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and the 2 of them went together. But Isaac spoke to Abraham, his father, and said, 'My father.' And he said, 'Here I am, my son.' And he said, 'Look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?' And Abraham said, 'My son, God will provide for himself the lamb for the burnt offering.' So the 2 of them went together, and they came to the place which God had told them, and Abraham built an altar there and placed the wood in order, and he bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar of the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But an angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. So he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not lay your hand on the lad, or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place, The Lord Will Provide. So what did Abraham think the Lord was wanting him to do? And that's a pretty sad thing, isn't it? Do you think that God would ever want us to do that? Because we just said, what's the most special thing that the Lord gives to us? Do you remember what that is? Love and life, right? So if the Lord provided this life, it seems kind of silly that he would then say, now that I've given it to you, you can take it away. Doesn't seem right. Sometimes when we are in really tough situations, we get confused about what God means sometimes. You have a thought? That's right. And that's a great way of explaining the story. And so part of it is the Lord does want to see us be really dedicated to Him, that we love Him above all else. But it's not necessarily through sacrifice. Later on in the prophets, the Lord actually says, I do not desire sacrifice, I desire mercy. There's another one that talks about, not wanting burnt offerings. He wants our obedience. So what did the Lord provide after the angel came and stopped him? What did the Lord provide for Abraham? It was a ram, and it says it was caught in a thicket. So we can see it's not a ram, because what's missing on this over here? It's missing the horns. But this is the best I could do for today. So our ram over here is caught in the thicket. You know what? This is actually an image of exactly what we were talking about. Sometimes we get confused about what the Lord really means for us. Because we have to learn, and it takes us a long time to learn. And so this image of a ram caught in a thicket is actually something that tells us about our own confusion about what the Lord teaches. Because Abraham really did want to please the Lord, right? So that's a good thing. He wanted to please the Lord. He wanted to do what was right and true. And actually the ram inside has to do with our love for what is true. What's something that's really true? We'll get to that in a second, a little bit more. So we think about our love for what is really true being caught up in a thicket, and it's got thorns and things like that. When we get confused in our own head, we don't recognize what exactly is right and true. So it says that he took the ram out of the thicket. So if you think about it, it's going, you know what? I'm not going to confuse what the Lord teaches me with what I think I already know. So that was him taking the ram out of the thicket. It's important to know what's true, and I might not know what's true, but I'm always going to go to the Lord for that. And that was what he offered up as a sacrifice. So what is true? What's something that's really true? Yes? We're in true. We're in church, and that is true. I'm thinking of true ideas, things that are in the Lord's Word. Everything that the Lord teaches us is truth. And there are 10 really important things that I'm hoping that you guys will take home and try to memorize them. Because the more that we learn to love these truths, the more that the Lord can actually bring us happiness. So you used to take one of these and maybe put it over your bed, or take it in your school notebook, of the Ten Commandments here. You can take one home as well. So for our thoughts this morning, we want to think about sometimes we get confused about what the Lord teaches us. But if we always try to go back to what is really true and follow His Ten Commandments, it can actually help us not be confused anymore. It can help us to do much better things than we might have done otherwise. So that's our lesson for this morning.